utsasarja swam deham nimi adhyatma kovida mitra varunayo jani urvasyam pratpitamaha iti utsasarja swam deham nimi adhyatma kovida mitra varunyo jani urvasyam pratpitamaha. Iti, thus, utsasarja, give up, swam, his own, deham, body, nimi, Maharaj Nimi, adhyatmako vida, fully conversant with spiritual knowledge, mitra varunayor, from the semen of Mitra and Varuna, discharged from seeing the beauty of Urvasi. Jani was born, Urvasyam, through Urvasi, a prostitute of the heavenly kingdom. Pratpitamaha Vasishta, who was known as the great-grandfather. Purport. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Mitra and Varuna chanced to meet Urvasi, the most beautiful prostitute of the heavenly kingdom, and they became lusty. Because they were great saints, they tried to control their lusts, but they could not do so, and thus they discharged semen. This semen was kept carefully in a water pot, and Vasishta was born from it. Om Gyantam Nandasya Janandana Shilaka Cheksalam Tanya Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Gurupam Nanda Prem Nanjapadanam Padan Simam Niyajaya. So here we again with this very alarming story of the great sage Vasishta and King Nimi. This great Brahmana, universally renowned, cursed this king to die. We see in the example of King Vena, when he was cursed by the Brahmanas, immediately left his body. But we see here that when King Nimi was cursed, although he was a Kshatriya, he retaliated and he cursed the Brahmana to also die. So, in Srimad Bhagavatam, sometimes we find that there are many of these contradictory stories is going on. And we sometimes left to wonder what is happening. We see in the situation of Maharaj Yudhishthira, when Krishna told him to tell his guru that his Ashwatthama died, Maharaj Yudhishthira twisted that order and indistinctly mentioned the elephant. As a result of this, although at the same time he's the son of Dharma, he was put to tell a lie to his guru. And failing to carry out that order with full faith on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it says that from then on, his foot touched the earthly planet. So, we also see when Draupadi was being disrobed, she asked the question, who was wagered first? Did Yudhishthira wager himself first, or did he wager me? And it says that Maharaj Yudhishthira wagered himself first. So then she says, well, then how can he wager me? If he lost himself, he can't wager me. In this regard, we see in the story of Bali Maharaj, he agreed to give Vamanadev 3 steps of land. And Vamanadev took these 3 steps of land, and in this way, with 2 steps, he occupied everything within the universe. And so much so that his toe was able to bore the universal circumference. So, Bali Maharaj was now indebted to Vamanadev. That you promised me 3 steps, but only 2 steps, I take everything. So, Bali Maharaj, in turn, he says, well then put the 3rd step on my head. In this regard, it's explained that the wives of Bali Maharaj, they were laughing, that just see the imprudence of Bali Maharaj. That he lose everything, nevertheless, he still thinks that he has his head to give. But this is his self-surrender, that he finally surrendered himself. This is a rich man. He may have so many assets, but the final, most important is himself. So we see these things, they go on in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's like a tug of war that is going on. One should honor the spiritual master. Then we hear the spiritual master is cursing the disciple. Of course, we understand in the code of the superior and the subordinate is that the superior should always be in a position of showing compassion for the subordinate. And the subordinate should always be respectful to the superior and be ready to render service. So sometimes we see that these barriers are being broken. So, neophyte stage is very difficult for us to understand what is going on, how to reconcile these differences. So these things, they go on and on and on and on, but ultimately we have to become Krishna conscious, we have to be able to see the Krishna consciousness events that is taking place in these circumstances. Just like in Maharaj Yudhishthira, it is very important for us to understand that for the purpose of Krishna, all these differences is reconciled. So it is important for us to understand that ultimately everything has to be done for the satisfaction of Krishna. This is the prime objective of one's devotional service, to act in such a way that it is for Krishna's pleasure. Sometimes, ordinarily, for Krishna's pleasure, things does not appear very nice. Just like Grandfather Bhishma was piercing the body of Krishna with arrows, and he was considering, this is a garland of flower for Krishna. This is my garlands, arrows piercing the body of Krishna. So sometimes, from an ordinary point of view, some of these things, they are not well understood, they are not accepted in society. But nevertheless, in the light of Krishna consciousness, some of these things, they are there. Just like in our Krishna consciousness movement, in the general behavior, the general code and conduct of Vaishnavas, actual Vaishnava behavior, it is that the ordinary people, and even those strict followers, smarta brahmanas of Vedic culture, they criticize the Vaishnavas. The ordinary people, sometimes they will wonder why it is that a brahmachari or a sannyasi, probably he's impotent, that's why he has no wife. He don't have any potency to attract a woman. That's why he's like this. For the smarta brahmanas, they will sometimes conclude that the Vaishnava, they're not very strict followers of Vedic culture. They don't follow this rules and that rules and that rules. But for them, it is very difficult for them to understand that everything is actually meant to please Krishna. But in the Vaishnava community, we have been taught that all our activities is actually meant to please Krishna. There's nothing else about our activities. This is our sole purpose. This is the goal of our life. Our whole intention in life is that we should execute our devotional service, our life in such a way that under no circumstance we feel aversion, we are averse to Krishna, or we act in any way that is averse to Krishna. So we always act in such a way that is meant to render loving service unto Krishna. So in this regard, sometimes the question may be raised that what is Krishna doing for me? Because people of material consciousness, they think that God is simply an order supplier. Religion is simply meant to increase material prosperity. And if by my execution of religious activities, my prosperity is expanding, then it means that I am performing my religious duty nicely. This is their understanding. And when they see ordinary, simple devotees or brahmacharis, they think that you are simply wasting your life. This human form of life is meant to have a wife, have money, have children, have a big house, have all kinds of material amenities. In this way, enjoy life. And if you don't do that, then your life is burdensome. So these are the problems that face materialistic people in their way of understanding how Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, how Krishna is meant to be the enjoyer in everything. But in the life of a devotee, it is clear, and it is there for us to understand, that we should understand that Krishna alone, Bhuktaram Yajna Tapasam, that Krishna alone is the enjoyer. Everything is meant for his enjoyment. Because we don't know our own source. We don't know where we come from. We don't even know how we get these bodies. We are not our own source. And if we consider that our parents is the source of our body, then we can trace it back and we see that our parents also don't know who is their source. So in this way, the devotee, he understands that since Krishna is the source of everything, source of everything means that he's the source of all enjoyment, he's the source of all happiness. Therefore, everything is meant for his pleasure. And on account of giving pleasure to the source, especially that this source is in himself the reservoir of pleasure, that will also bring pleasure to me. So, the ordinary materialistic people, they are bluffed by the material energy, thinking that this material body will somehow or the other be a place for them to enjoy. But they are unable to recognize that in their attempt to enjoy means they has to depend on an object. That in order for you to see, your eyes depend on the sun. Similarly, all your senses are dependent on their object. Your hands depend on something to touch. Your ears depend on sound. So they are unable to recognize how they are dependent. Similarly, the impersonalists, they are also bewildered by this material, by this energy, and they are thinking that at a certain point, I will again become my own source. I'll become God. How it is that I was not God, they don't understand. And how it is I'll become God, in their assumption, simply by studying the scripture, by performing some austerity, following some injunction of the scriptures, then that will enable me to become God. But for the devotee, it is very clear that we can understand that we are always eternal servant of God. Having forgotten this position, we are again entangled with this. We are entangled with this material energy, and as a result of being entangled with this material energy, we are forgetful of our real identity as an eternal soul that is an eternal servant of the Lord, that is meant for the service of the Lord, and whose constitutional nature is simply to render service. Beyond rendering service, he has no other purpose. If he does not render service, he's acting against his constitutional nature. And acting against his own constitutional nature will never, under any circumstance, bring him happiness. So this is the understanding of the devotees. So we see in this circumstance with King Nimi that in Vasish, we can see that King Nimi, being cursed by Vasish, he, as a devotee, he went to the spiritual world. He wasn't bothered. Just go back to the spiritual world. But in the case of Vasish, he decided, well, I'll stay here. Although he is one of very great and powerful stage and deserve all due respect, nevertheless, his understanding about his real identity is still clouded, that he still preferred to remain in the material world. So much so that we can even see that later on in the story, that when King Nimi was asked, by the demigods to bring King Nimi back to his body, King Nimi says, no, I don't want to come back. Why would I want to come back in this miserable material world? What would I want to do there? I'm happy where I am in the spiritual world. So, so we can see sometimes we see these circumstances that take place that even in our Krishna consciousness movement, we may see a bhakta may be there, but in reality, in his past life, that he may be far superiorly advanced in spiritual life than us, but he has to grow. And sometimes we see the disciple and the guru, that the disciple is more spiritually situated than the guru. So in this case, we see that is the case with King Nimi and Vasish, that King Nimi was naturally more spiritually situated than Vasish, that both of them have the opportunity to leave the body, but they made two different choices. The disciple made the choice to go back home, back to Godhead, whereas the spiritual master decided, well, let me stay in the material world. I still got work to do. So sometimes it's been said that the devotee, actually a devotee, it doesn't matter when he takes birth, what is his condition, whether he's in, like Haridas Thakur, in a Muslim family, or Sridhar Maharaj, Sridhar, he was simply making cups and plates to sell. It doesn't really matter how poor is his condition, what degraded family he takes birth in. What really matters is that the devotee remain Krishna conscious under all circumstances. So this is our test that we always have to note, that entire Narayan Smriti, that the goal of life is to be able to constantly remember the Lord, to constantly remember our constitutional position, to always act in that constitutional position, that we are eternal servants of the Lord. And this service position between us and the Lord is not that of requesting service from the Lord, rather it is that of rendering loving service to the Lord, that service that is meant to please the Lord. This is the proper position of the devotee. This is the real dharma, where the living entity, attaining his actual constitutional position, render loving service to the Lord. But when this dharma becomes twisted, it becomes altered in the name of all kinds of, whether Hindu, Christian, Muslim, or whatever, it becomes twisted, and it is now executed simply for material prosperity. We see sometimes they're religionists, they go to people and try to help them in their economic situation just to attract them to come from one religious sect to another religious sect. So Dharma or religion is not actually meant to improve material condition. Dharma is actually meant to again re-situate the living entity in its natural position. That is to render loving service to the Lord. Besides this position of rendering loving service to the Lord, everything else the living entity does is simply a show. When we have these bodies, everything else we do, whether we become great yogis, great jnanis, whatever greatness we attain in this material world, is simply a show if our activities is not meant for the pleasure of the Lord. It's that these activities, Prahlad Maharaj said, it should provoke loving service to the Lord. Just like we see in the case of two persons, one person is using remarks, the other person is being tolerant, the other person is keep doing things that will agitate, that will bring out certain reaction. So similarly, our activities is meant to provoke like that, provoke this loving service to Krishna. And when our activities, everything we do, provoke this loving service to Krishna, it entices us, it enchants us to render loving service to Krishna, then that devotional service is said to bring about the real results of having this human body. Because this human body if it is not being used for this purpose of Dharma, to render loving service to the Lord, then this human body becomes no better than an animal body. Because the same propensities are there when you have the human body, the ability to eat, sleep, mate, and defend. But with this particular body, the human body, we can go a step farther because there is higher intelligence. So, as devotees, when we're preaching and we try to encourage people to live a simple life, to don't waste their time trying to acquire unnecessary material commodities and try to improve their bodily, household conditions. And they sometimes think that this is trying to, again, live a primitive life. It's like sometimes we will feel that everybody has a cell phone, and if I don't have a cell phone, it means that something is wrong with me, because I need a cell phone too, because a cell phone means I can do so many things. But of course, for the devotee, that cell phone can use to do so many services. But if it is not being used at that time, at that moment, it is not being used for the service of the Lord, then it becomes an unwanted necessity. Unwanted. It's not necessary. It's a necessity, in our opinion, but it's unwanted. So, so we have to always recognize this position of having everything about our life being centered around Krishna. And if we don't do that, then this human form of life is misused. And when the human form of life is being misused, then there is reactions. So we have to, and acknowledging these reactions, then we have to be careful as to not to fall again into this trap. As is explained, that when the soul is within the womb of his mother, he's in that uncomfortable situation that he's now able to pray and beg the Lord that if I has an opportunity upon being released from this condition, I will again take to your service. But when he's released from the womb of the mother because of bad association, he again forget this vow, this promise that he made to the Lord. So, but when we come again in the association of the devotees, then we are given this opportunity again to remember this promise that you have made this promise to serve the Lord of the heart. And again, you should fully dedicate this life, utilize this human form of life in such a way that everything about your life is meant as an offering unto the Lord. When the human form of life is utilized in this way, then success is guaranteed. So the scriptural injunction is, so we can see on the part of Vasisht, we can see that this Atyahara was there. It crept into his spiritual position. Atyahara, that he just was, of course, as a great saintly person, as a priest, he could have said, well, I have an obligation to perform Indra Jagya, then get another priest to do it, or let me appoint another priest to do it. But when returning, because his disciple performed the Jagya without him, he became angry. Because his disciple, on the other hand, is thinking that every moment should be utilized for the service of the Lord. Why wait? At any moment I'll die. Chinnar Kapandit explained that point. At any moment you will die. Don't waste time. So the disciple, not wanting to waste time, wanting to take every opportunity for the service of the Lord. It's just similarly like in the case of with Durvasa Muni, Maharaj Ambrish, not wanting to waste the opportunity to fully offer the Ekadasi service to the Lord, he was cursed. So again, we always have to be able to point out that it is the satisfaction of Krishna that is the most important thing in our activities. The most important goal, all our endeavor is meant to come to that point where our activities is meant for the satisfaction of Krishna, that we can please Krishna. If we are able to accomplish this fact, that I am able to please Krishna, then in spite there may be externally so many shortcomings, nevertheless, by pleasing Krishna, just like when the Pandavas, simply by giving one grain morsel from a pot to Krishna, then the whole universe was filled. Not only with Durvasa Muni and his disciples, but everyone in the universe became filled. So simply by pleasing Krishna, we achieve the goal of life. So this is a position of the devotees, and we have to strive for this position, because the real problems in life is birth, disease, and old age. Because this is against the principle of the individual soul existence. The individual soul is eternal, and therefore to be changing bodies, to going through these changes, leaving one body, forgetting his old body, and now thinking that he's a brand new body or he's a new person, these things is against his existence. The eternal soul should always be, sometimes, I remember once mentioning to one college student about this fact, and he was saying, then the spiritual world ought to be a boring place, because there is just a constant existence. So this is overintelligence to think that the spiritual world, just to be eternally existence, is a boring situation. No, we have to understand the dynamic nature of the spiritual world, that the happiness is ever increasing. Unlike in the material world, where there is no happiness, there's a ever-increasing desire to enjoy. But in the spiritual world, where the happiness is always flowing, there is no unhappiness, then that happiness is always increasing. It's a different circumstance, completely different circumstance. In the material world, the opposite is taking place. We are always pursuing happiness because this is our nature. The living entity, this is its intrinsic nature to enjoy. Just as it is the intrinsic nature of water to be liquid. Similarly, it is the intrinsic nature of the living entity to enjoy. So if he is not in the spiritual world where he has ample facility, where enjoyment is readily available, and he's in the material world where the material energy manifests as dull matter, then the living entity, his nature is still there. And therefore he's trying on the illusion. The illusion is giving him that ability to think that by this eyes, this nose, this ears, I will enjoy. And because it is his nature to enjoy, because he's now against Krishna, he has no intention of serving Krishna, he have come to this strong vow that I will still pursue this enjoyment. So, but he'll pursue this enjoyment eternally in the material world, and he still not be able to give up this vow. But when he comes in contact with the devotees of the Lord, the pure devotees, then the devotee is able to enlighten him beyond that deception, that illusion, that there is no future in the material world about the living entity being able to enjoy. Just as we see with this material body, that although we use the tongue to taste sweet, nevertheless, it's like a person, if he's enchanted, generally, everyone is enchanted by tasting sweet. So when you see if a person has something sweet in his mouth, the countenance of his body is glowing, he's brightened up. Some people, they they may has different, they may more like bitter things or pepper or whatever. But when they taste that, when they come in contact with that taste that they have some connection with as a source of enjoyment, you see they become bright. So we see that if the same body is there as a dead body, and you put that same element that gives them enjoyment to the tongue, then there's no enjoyment. There's no glow no more in the face. You put sweet in the mouth of a dead body, there is no more glow. That, well, this is something sweet. No. Because this ability to enjoy is not on the basis of the body. This ability to enjoy is on the basis of two other factors. One is the Lord, and the other is the Jiva Atma, who is given that power of attorney to use this body. So, on that basis, then there is reaction to sweet. But without the Jiva Atma, the soul, then there is no reaction to sweet or whatever will give enjoyment. So this enjoying is not actually on the basis of the body. It is the nature of the soul. And we can't give it up. Unlike when we are, as the deluded position of impersonalists, they think that the material body and having a material body or having a body in which you are trying to enjoy is such an illusion that you should try now not to have a body at all. Don't have any body. So then you wouldn't fall under this illusion. But this is already in, this is sometimes there is this principle. This is then you have to come to that platform of nothingness. So nothing means that there is no existence. So you have to come to that platform that there is no existence. But we see so much contradiction in this fact, in that the mind is naturally active. And in order to bring the mind to that platform of nothingness, it means engaging the mind against its own principle. So therefore, there is still activities. There is activities to come to the platform of nothingness. Nevertheless, the gurus or teachers of these platforms will propagate that they have achieved this platform of nothingness. There is no such thing of nothingness, because the living entity by nature, it is his nature, because he's a servant, therefore it is his nature to be active. And he's been given a mind in the material world to fulfill that active propensity of his nature. So he has to be active. So to be inactive is also being active, means just acting against your natural nature. So you has to be active. So this is how the illusionary energy bewilders the living entities. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says that this knowledge becomes stolen by illusion. It's like we see that in the scientific world, in the world in which people exploring all the elements of the material world to develop and to create and to make all kinds of things, it is just centered around the dead body, around the body. It cannot go farther than the body. How to improve the conditions of the body. But there is no actual improvement. Just like a rich man, there is no actual improvement in his body. He does not eat more. He cannot sleep more. He cannot do anything more. The body is still conditioned. So in spite of a vast amount of wealth, there is really no improvement. And therefore, the problems of life is not also solved. Birth, death, disease, and old age is not solved. But nevertheless, in illusion, a rich man thinks that he's in a better position than a poor man. Whereas, in both conditions, there is birth, death, disease, and old age. So, in Krishna consciousness, we are being taught to rise beyond these conditions of life and to come to that platform by which we use this life in such a way that we become Krishna conscious. Krishna conscious means acting in the interest of Krishna, trying to please Krishna. So we don't have to over-endeavor. Yesterday we were talking that in the actual life of a devotee, as far as material life is concerned, he will always remain like a square peg in a round hole. He never actually fit. And for the regular materialistic people, everything is okay. Because he says, ignorance is bliss. And for the devotee, as long as you acquire a little bit knowledge and devotion and service, you're being haunted. When you're trying to make certain endeavor, you're always being checked. You cannot do this. I don't want to do this. I cannot do this. So you always remain a square peg in a round hole. And for the non-devotees, there has no restrictions. Thief, beg, or borrow, whatever it is, you must eat ghee. So this is but for a devotee, it's very difficult to live under this principle, to progress under this principle. It's always a square peg in a round hole. So we don't, as devotees, we always have to be very conscious of our endeavors. We should not over-endeavor. Either way, we should not over-endeavor for material things, or we should not over-endeavor to simply become too renounced in material life. Rather, we should try to understand that position in between, that is Krishna consciousness, that is using things in the service of Krishna, and accepting that which is necessary, that which is allotted as our quota. Uddhava in the 11th canto, he made that point. He says that whatever is offered to Krishna, whether it becomes garland, sandalwood, his clothes, whatever Krishna has already used, then I will decorate my body with these things. In this way, I'll conquer over the material energy. So whatever is being offered to Krishna, whatever is our allotted quota, we use that in the service of the Lord. In this way, we use the rest of our time to remain conscious of Krishna. Rather, we don't try to over-endeavor or try to improve, waste our time trying to improve our material conditions. Because the body is temporary anyway. And under no circumstance, the body, you can enjoy these material things. The sensation of enjoyment is only because of the presence of the soul. If the soul is not present within the body, there can be no sensation of enjoyment. So why waste our time trying to improve these bodily conditions? This human form of life is not meant for that purpose. In the evolution of the living entity, passing through all these different species of life, have awarded him the opportunity to enjoy in all the different facilities, whether it's through his tongue, whether it's through his eyes, whether it's through his ears, whether it's through his nose, whatever. It has awarded the living entity all the different facility to enjoy. But when the living entity comes to this human form of life, that business of trying to enjoy through the material body should be completed. Now, Tato Brahma Jignas. Now is no more time to waste about this business of enjoyment. Now is time to try to understand the importance of Krishna consciousness, Brahma Jignasa. This is the purpose. This is the whole purpose of the human form of life. And if the human form of life is not used in this way, it is an opportunity wasted. So we don't want to do that. We want to take advantage of the association of devotees. We have this. We are in this age of Kali. In spite this is the most degraded age. And we have this wonderful opportunity to come under the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he is distributing this mercy very easily, very freely. in this form of this chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Very easily, he awards us this opportunity to attain Krishna Prema. So we just has to, as we hear, we try to understand this Gaura Bhajan, this mood of serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and understand the results of serving Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is, it is explained that just as it is impossible to hold on to a dark tail and to cross the ocean, similarly, it is impossible to understand this mood of loving service to Krishna in the form of the gopis without the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, by performing this Gaura Bhajan, is following in this mood of chanting this Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Worshipping Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We don't just want to wear tilak and dhoti, but we feel no emotion, no affection for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We want to come to that platform by which we always feel this attraction and this affection for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. And by understanding this Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his mission, his mood of devotional service, then this Srimati Radharani will become favorably disposed to us. Favorably disposed to us in such a way that she can, or the effulgence of her toenail can illuminate the darkness within our heart. This attraction we want to feel for the Lord should illuminate in our heart like the sun. We see that when the sun is in the sky, before the sun is in the sky, so many luminaries may have so much value. Particularly the moon. The illumination of the moon in the night is so powerful that it almost dissipates the darkness. And we can still have some vision of things around us. But when the sun is there, you may see it is very difficult to even recognize the moon. Because the sun is so powerful that it makes the illumination of the moon disappear. So we want to feel that kind of attraction for the Lord, that this attraction to the Lord should illuminate within our hearts so much so that we no longer feel attraction to anything material. That's how we want to feel attraction to this chanting of this Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. We want to feel that kind of attraction for the holy name, that when we're doing our japa, nothing else matters. Everything else can wait. It's like now in America, they'll put signs on the board that says, text can wait when you're driving. When you stop, you can text. So similarly, when we're doing our japa, we want everything else, it can wait. Right now, it is the business to hear and chant the holy name. This is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood, to hear and chant the holy name. So we want to invite Krishna within our heart so that he be comfortable. Being comfortable means he has our attention. And so we can give that attention, that affection for him, and in this way make our life successful. Hare Krishna. Is there any questions or comments? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, you please explain what is the definition of dharma?
Sutta Goswami explained that very nicely. That dharma is those activities that is actually meant to please Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami explained in another way. He says that giving up all kinds of speculation and materialistic activities, acting such a way that you simply pleases the Lord. So, this Krishna also explained, Dharmasya Sukhasya Kantikasya Cha, that I am the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. So this dharma is meant to engage in the service of this person who is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness for the living entity. Dharma, when Prabhupada explained, in English, it actually means constitutional. Means it can't change. That which cannot change. So if he says dharma in water, means it can't change. There can be some alteration, but it can't change. As soon as it is in a natural position, it will become liquid. So dharma, we understand dharma in that way. That which cannot change. Dharma for the living entity means rendering loving service to the Lord. Dharma for water means being constitutionally liquid. So this is the understanding of dharma. Dharma, we see that there's religious sect by the name of Sanatan Dharma. It says Sanatan Dharma. Actually, in the use of the word Sanatan Dharma, you can identify certain contradiction in this presentation of Sanatan Dharma. Because if it is Dharma, it got to be Sanatan. It can't change. But this is Sanatan Dharma, and then when it says Sanatan Dharma, this is it must be a particular sect of people. You must be within my organization. You must be of my background. Then it's become you are part of this Sanatan Dharma. So these are all misunderstanding in this word Dharma. Dharma means constitutional, can't change. Dharma for the living entity means he's a servant and he has to render service. He has to find his master and render service. And what is this service attitude between he and his master? His master is Atmarama, completely satisfied. But this servant, his nature is, he's always desiring happiness. Therefore, he should render service. Render what kind of a service? Loving service. If he render this loving service, he is situated in his normal position. Hare Krishna. Is there any other question? So,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, you mentioned that Mayavadis, so they also read scriptures and they also perform austerities. They think that they will merge with God. But scripture ultimate goal is to know the absolute truth. So what is their means we have to know the absolute truth of the ultimate goal is to know absolute truth. So what do they read in that? Scriptures mean it includes everything, Vedas, you know.
In one sense, we have to understand that they are knowing the absolute truth. They are knowing the absolute truth when they accept that, yeah, I will merge into this absolute truth. They are knowing that. But Krishna explained that this knowledge is stolen by illusion. And what is this from the Vaishnava platform? What is this? What is it that is actually stolen by illusion? I'm spiritual and I'm moving into a spiritual platform. What is stolen by illusion? My service propensity. That is what is stolen by illusion. Because he should be serving the Lord, he wants to become one with God. So that is what is stolen by illusion. So this is the problem of impersonalistic life. Because the living entity cannot give up service attitude. And even if he attains Brahma Jyoti, he has to come back because he's giving up his real nature. How long can he stay there? He'll be there for some time, but he has to serve. There's an ordinary saying that says, no man is an island. He cannot become God because he was never God. God don't become God. So therefore he cannot become God, and therefore he cannot remain there alone. He has to come back. Prabhupada says, now when they come back, then they become big philanthropists. They're building big hospital. They want to do good for everybody. But again, this is extended. Prabhupada explained that this is extended sense gratification. You either gratify your own sense or gratify the sense of others. It's still sense gratification. And it still defeats the purpose of the eternal soul. The purpose of the eternal soul is to render loving service to the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Absolute truth is a person, is a supreme personality of Godhead. It cannot be impersonal. Absolute truth itself is a supreme personality of Godhead.
Absolute truth has three phases: Brahman, Paramatman, Bhagavan. So this Brahman, the impersonal, this is also the absolute truth. This is one aspect of the absolute truth. Just as we have the sunshine, is also the sun. And we have the sun planet, is also the sun. We also have the sun god, who is in himself the person, the sun. So, but these are different aspects. So the impersonal aspect, this is also an aspect of God. But the problem is that the impersonalists, they're thinking that they will, upon entering into this Brahmjyoti aspect, they will become God. But if you was never God, how you become God? And if you was God, how you lose God position? And if you lose God position, then whatever caused you to lose God position has to be superior to you. God cannot be defeated under no circumstance. Is there any other question or comments? I guess we can stop here. Hare Krishna. Thank you for your support. Hare Krishna.